I thought I was helping Dad surprise Mom for their anniversary, but what I found in his laptop changed everything. And I mean everything. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how one college project destroyed my entire world. It was March 2023, and my parents' 20th wedding anniversary was coming up. I was home for spring break from Northwestern, and Mom had been dropping hints about wanting a slideshow of old family photos. You know how moms are, subtle as a brick through a window. So I decided to be the perfect daughter and create this amazing anniversary surprise. Dad was away on another one of his business trips to Phoenix. He was a regional sales manager for a medical supply company, and these Arizona trips had been happening monthly for about 3 years now. Always the same story, big client, important meetings, back Sunday night. Mom would just roll her eyes and say, "Your father and his work ethic." I figured his laptop would have tons of old photos stored somewhere. Dad was kind of a digital hoarder, never deleted anything. When I booted it up, it didn't even have a password. Classic Dad move. I started looking through his pictures folder, expecting to find vacation photos and birthday parties. What I found instead made my stomach drop to the floor. There were photos, all right. But they weren't of us. There was a woman I'd never seen before, blonde, probably in her 30s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She was wearing a wedding ring. Next to her was a little girl, maybe 8 years old, with Dad's exact same dimples and green eyes. They were at a park I didn't recognize. The little girl was on Dad's shoulders, both of them laughing. The woman, this stranger, had her arm around Dad's waist like she belonged there. Like this was her family. My hand started shaking. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe these were coworkers? Family friends? But then I saw the folder name, Phoenix Family 2020 to 2023. Phoenix. Where Dad went every month. I clicked deeper into the folder. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, school plays. This little girl opening presents under a tree that wasn't ours. Dad helping her with homework at a kitchen table I'd never seen. And in every single photo, he looked happy. Not work-stressed Dad happy. Genuine, relaxed, at-home happy. The kind of happy I thought he only had with us. I found documents next. Lease agreements for an apartment in Phoenix. Under Dad's name and someone called Jennifer Morrison. Bank statements showing monthly transfers of $3,000 to a joint account I'd never heard of. $3,000. Every month. For 3 years. That's when the math hit me like a freight train. My college tuition had been tight lately. Dad kept saying Northwestern was expensive, maybe I should transfer somewhere cheaper. Mom had started working double shifts at the hospital to help cover expenses. We'd canceled our family vacation last summer because money was a little stretched. But Dad was sending $3,000 a month to Phoenix? I kept digging, and it got worse. So much worse. Text message screenshots he'd saved, because of course he saved everything. Messages to Jen about missing you and Emma. Emma. The little girl had a name now. He called her sweetheart and Daddy's little princess. The same pet names he used for me. There were emails about Emma's school enrollment, her dance classes, her doctor's appointments. Dad wasn't just sending money to Phoenix. He was living there. He was being a father there. While telling us he was working. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly. I found travel itineraries going back 5 years, not 3. 5 years of monthly trips to Phoenix, staying at the same address. The address on the lease. Sometimes he'd extend trips by a few days, claiming the client needed extra meetings. Those weren't meetings. Those were family dinners. I screenshot everything. Every photo, every document, every lie documented in digital form. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely use the trackpad. Part of me wanted to close the laptop and pretend I'd never seen any of it. But I couldn't. This wasn't just about Dad anymore. Mom deserved to know. She'd been married to a stranger for 20 years. Dad came home Sunday night, same as always. Tired, claiming the meetings had run long, complaining about Phoenix traffic. He hugged Mom, asked about my spring break, mentioned something about the client being difficult. Every word was poison in my ears. I waited until Tuesday morning. Mom had left for work, and Dad was in his home office, probably planning his next business trip. I printed out everything, photos, bank statements, the lease agreement. Made 2 copies. One for me, one for Mom. I walked into his office and set the stack of papers on his desk. "We need to talk," I said. Dad looked down at the papers, and the color drained from his face completely. For a moment, he looked like he might throw up. Then he looked up at me with these desperate eyes. "Sarah, I can explain, can you?" I cut him off. "Can you explain Emma? Can you explain Jennifer? Can you explain where my college fund went?" That last part hit him like a physical blow. He actually flinched. "How long?" I demanded. 15 years, he whispered. "I met Jen at a conference in Phoenix 15 years ago. It just happened. 15 years. I was 7 when this started. This other family had existed for more than half my life." "Emma's 9, he continued, his voice breaking. "She thinks I'm a traveling salesman who lives in Chicago. Jen thinks your mother and I are divorced, that I'm just paying alimony. Everyone was living a lie. Everyone except the children." "My tuition money," I said, my voice deadly calm. "I was going to figure something out, $45,000. I shouted. "You stole $45,000 from my education to play house in Arizona." Dad broke down completely. Started sobbing, saying he never meant for it to go this far, that he loved both families, that he was trapped. He begged me not to tell Mom, promised he'd end things in Phoenix, swore he'd pay back every penny. But it was too late for promises. I called Mom at work. Told her to come home immediately, that it was about Dad. She knew from my voice that something was catastrophically wrong. When Mom got home, I handed her the other set of papers and left the room. What followed was the kind of screaming match that shakes the foundation of a house. Literally. Our neighbors later asked if everything was okay. Everything was not okay. Mom confronted Dad with everything, the money, the lies, the other family. He tried to minimize it at first, claim it wasn't that serious. That lasted about 30 seconds before Mom's fury made him realize exactly how serious it was. The worst part? Dad tried to blame his situation on being overwhelmed by supporting 2 families. Like he was some kind of victim. Like he hadn't chosen this. Every day for 15 years. Mom kicked him out that night. Packed his bags herself and left them on the front porch. But here's where the story gets even crazier. I couldn't stop thinking about Jennifer and Emma in Phoenix. They had no idea what was happening. Emma was about to lose the only father she'd ever known, and Jennifer was about to discover her husband was a complete fiction. So I did something that probably sounds insane. I found Jennifer's Facebook and sent her a message. I told her who I was, what I'd discovered, and that she deserved to know the truth. She called me within an hour, crying. Turns out, she'd been suspicious for months. Dad's stories about his ex-wife never quite added up. He was always vague about his life in Chicago, never let Emma visit, wouldn't video call when he was supposedly at home. Jennifer had actually hired a private investigator 2 weeks earlier. We compared notes. Dad had been stealing from both families. He'd taken money from Jennifer's savings account, claiming it was for Emma's college fund, while simultaneously draining my actual college fund. The man was running a 15-year Ponzi scheme on his own families. Jennifer and Mom ended up talking directly. Two women who'd been married to the same man, who'd both been lied to for years, who'd both had their money stolen. Instead of being angry with each other, they became allies. Dad tried to come back a week later, promising counseling, swearing he'd choose our family. Mom told him the only choice he needed to make was whether to face fraud charges in Illinois or Arizona first. He disappeared after that. Just gone. Left both families to pick up the pieces of his lies. But here's the thing about truth, even when it destroys everything, it also sets you free. Mom and I started rebuilding our relationship without Dad's constant deception poisoning everything. She got therapy, I transferred to a state school I could actually afford, and we both learned what authentic family actually looks like. Jennifer and Emma moved to Illinois 6 months later. Not to be near us specifically, but for a fresh start. Emma and I have become something like sisters, trauma bonding over having the same terrible father, I guess. We're all better off without him. Sometimes the truth destroys everything you thought you knew about your life. But sometimes, that's exactly what needs to happen. Because living in someone else's lie isn't really living at all. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Have you ever discovered something that completely changed how you saw your family? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real stories like this one. Sometimes the truth is harder than fiction, but it's always worth telling.